Picture yourself standing right at the very edge of the immense and sprawling Sahara Desert, gazing out upon a boundless expanse that seems to ripple endlessly with golden dunes that roll and shift, extending far beyond anything your eyes can reach or the horizon can contain. The intense sun blazes down with unrelenting heat, casting sharp shadows and turning the sands into a shimmering sea of molten gold. Around you, the desert wind moves softly yet purposefully, its faint whispers carrying with it ancient secrets that have been passed down through countless generations. Murmurs that seem to bring to life the echoes of footsteps long since vanished, lost somewhere deep within the endless sands, threading together a timeless story etched across the vast and silent landscape of history itself. Amid the ever-shifting sands of the vast desert, countless stories are both lost to the ravages of time and rediscovered by those who listen closely. The relentless winds sweep across the barren landscape, carrying with them faint whispers and echoes of caravans that once roamed these treacherous terrains but have long since vanished into the abyss of memory. These journeys were not merely expeditions for trade or commerce. They were profound tales woven from threads of suffering, resilience, and unyielding endurance. Beneath the surface, buried deep within the endless grains of sand, lie silent witnesses to these histories, quiet sentinels that keep watch without a word, preserving the legacy of countless souls who braved the harsh elements, their struggles etched invisibly beneath the desert's golden blanket. For countless centuries, stretching back through the annals of time, these relentless and unforgiving dunes have borne witness to a ceaseless procession of camel caravans painstakingly making their way across the vast desert. These caravans weren't merely transporters of goods and merchandise, but living vessels of human endurance and hardship. Laden with more than just merchants' wares, their burdens included the weight of human lives, captives, prisoners of circumstance and fate, compelled to traverse this harsh terrain. Their journey followed ancient trails etched into the earth by the sweat, pain, and unwavering determination of those who came before. Each step taken on this arduous path was a testament to both suffering endured and the unyielding spirit of resilience that propelled them forward through the scorching heat, swirling sands, and endless horizon. Human lives. These were people torn from their homes and their roots, ripped away from familiar lands, families, and futures, to be sold and shipped across seas in the belly of ships. Their journey was marked not by the promise of wealth or discovery, but by immense suffering, heartbreak, and relentless resistance. The waves themselves seemed to carry the echo of sorrow, the silent murmurs of those who endured unimaginable hardships, yet also the fierce spirit of defiance that refused to be drowned beneath the endless blue. The sprawling desert paths that stretch endlessly across vast, arid landscapes, as well as the expansive oceanic routes crisscrossing the Indian Ocean, were more than mere natural marvels or geographic features. They served as harsh, unforgiving corridors of human suffering and exploitation, functioning as the brutal arteries of the trans-Saharan and Indian Ocean slave trades. These extensive networks were not simply trade routes. They represented systems of immense human cruelty and disruption, where countless lives were uprooted and entire communities were irreversibly transformed. Over centuries, these pathways reshaped African societies in profound ways, altering demographic patterns, instilling deep social scars, and influencing economic and political structures. Despite their immense historical significance and far-reaching impacts of these slave trades, have remained largely overlooked or marginalized in mainstream historical accounts, leaving a gap in our understanding of Africa's past and the complex legacies that continue to shape its present. Null, role, assistant. Although many historical narratives frequently fail to acknowledge these harrowing accounts, the weight of those shackles resonates with undeniable clarity. These chains do more than merely restrain physical bodies. They represent the confinement of an entire heritage, a heritage systematically erased from collective memory. This suppressed legacy insists on being recognized and honored, standing as a powerful testament that should be remembered just as firmly and vividly as the well-documented and widely recounted stories of other grim and tragic periods in history, such as the Atlantic slave trade. The silence surrounding these experiences does not diminish their significance or the impact they have had on generations. Rather, the shackles serve as a stark symbol of oppression and loss, calling out across time to ensure that this chapter, too, finds its rightful place in the broader tapestry of our shared human story. The journey across the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Sahara Desert was nothing short of a grueling trial that tested the limits of human endurance in ways few could imagine. Day after day, the relentless sun blazed mercilessly overhead, pushing temperatures far beyond 45 degrees Celsius, scorching the earth beneath and burning the skin of anyone brave or desperate enough to make the attempt. With every step taken on the shifting dunes, travelers faced the relentless threat of dehydration, their bodies slowly losing precious fluids in the dry, arid air that offered no relief. Exhaustion set in quickly, sapping strength, clouding judgment, and turning simple tasks into monumental challenges. All around, invisible dangers lurked in the endless sea of sand, where death seemed to wait patiently in every grain, ready to claim those who faltered. Many who embarked on this formidable crossing were never seen again, swallowed whole by the desert's merciless embrace. The Sahara did not merely test their stamina, it erased their presence, stripping away identities, their names lost to the wind, and their stories fading into silence beneath the scorching sun and shifting sands. The great empires of West Africa, such as Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, flourished for centuries, largely because of their strategic control over extensive trade networks crisscrossing the region. These networks were not just about the exchange of gold, salt, and other valuable commodities. They also involved human lives. African leaders and rulers occasionally engaged in the practice of trading captives, individuals who had been seized during conflicts, wars, or raiding expeditions. These captives were then handed over or bartered to Arab traders who operated along these routes. This exchange did far more than merely transfer property. It wove the institution of slavery deeply into the fabric of societies, economies, and political structures that held these vast empires together. The human cost of such a practice was immense, and yet it became an integral part of the system that allowed these thriving civilizations to maintain control over wide territories, influence cultural developments, and interact with distant peoples. This intercontinental trade in captives not only sustained the ruling classes economically, but also contributed to cultural transformations through the movement of peoples and ideas, highlighting the complex and often painful intersections between power, commerce, and identity across African and Arab worlds during that time. At critical and strategic oases such as Takeda, groups of enslaved Africans arrived after enduring unimaginable hardships. They were exhausted, their bodies frail and spirits worn thin from the brutal journey that had torn them from their homelands. Upon reaching these stops, they found themselves thrust into a world of captivity anew, where they would be sold as property to unknown masters. These marketplaces, once bustling hubs brimming with the energy of trade and lively exchange, bore witness to far more than mere commerce. Beneath the vibrant hues of fabrics, spices, and goods on display, and beneath the lively din of haggling voices and animated crowds, there lay a profound and hidden current of pain. The stalls and alleyways were soaked with countless stories of heartbreak and despair, invisible to the casual eye, but etched deeply into the memories of those who passed through. The lively clamor and dazzling colors could never fully mask the sorrow that permeated the very air. Tales of lives uprooted, families shattered, and futures stolen, all unfolding in the shadows of the marketplace's apparent vibrancy. From these bustling, often chaotic markets, scattered across distant regions, countless captives were forcefully taken and transported northward, destined for towering cities such as Tripoli and Cairo. Upon arrival in these sprawling urban centers, their fates were varied but frequently bleak. Many were forced into roles as servants, subjected to grueling labor and subservience in wealthy households. Others were reduced to concubines, living confined lives bound by the will of those in power. A number were trained or coerced into becoming soldiers, fighting in armies far from their places of origin. While a small fraction of these individuals managed, through a combination of circumstance, skill, or sheer luck, to ascend the ranks and wield significant influence or authority, the overwhelming majority endured lives marked by hardship and anonymity. In the grand narratives of these mighty empires, where countless peoples and stories were interwoven like threads in a vast, intricate tapestry, these captives too often appeared only as forgotten strands, briefly visible and then lost, overshadowed by the sweep of history and the ambitions of rulers. Among the many individuals who were enslaved, there existed a distinguished group known as the Mamluks, elite warriors who were uniquely trained within the royal courts of Egypt. These men were originally captives, taken from their homelands and forced into servitude. Yet through extraordinary resilience and skill, they managed to turn the very circumstances of their captivity into an opportunity for immense power and influence. The narrative of the Mamluks stands as a profound example of transformation emerging from deep adversity. Their journey illustrates how even in the darkest conditions of tragedy and hardship, unexpected turns of fate can lead to remarkable shifts in status and authority. However, it is crucial to recognize that no matter how impressive their rise to power was, it can never fully erase or diminish the overwhelming pain, suffering, and injustice that served as the foundation for their ascent. The torment and brutal realities that these individuals endured are an inseparable part of their history, an enduring reminder that their empowerment was born out of profound human cost. For more than a millennium, an unimaginably brutal and devastating trade relentlessly extracted wealth and countless human lives from deep within the very heart of Africa. The vast expanse of the Sahara Desert, rather than acting as a protective boundary or obstacle, served instead as an open passageway, a critical and often overlooked conduit through which this commerce flowed. This corridor was not simply a physical route, it became a powerful force that reshaped entire populations, altered cultural landscapes, and redirected the fates of millions across generations. The profound impact of this shadowy chapter woven into the fabric of history remains largely unspoken and seldom acknowledged in mainstream narratives, yet its repercussions have echoed through time, affecting the social and demographic makeup of the continent in ways that are still felt today. Far to the far east, stretched along the shimmering shores of the Swahili coast, a series of vibrant and bustling cities thrived and prospered over centuries. Among the most notable were Zanzibar and Kilwa, two remarkable ports that grew to prominence as essential gateways, serving as crucial linkages between the vast, diverse continent of Africa and the distant, culturally rich regions of Arabia, Persia, and other far-flung lands beyond. These cities were not merely centers of local trade, but acted as dynamic hubs where the currents of commerce and exchange flowed ceaselessly, connecting peoples from multiple continents and intertwining their histories. In these coastal urban centers, a complex network of African intermediaries played an indispensable role, facilitating the movement of goods, ideas, and people. These middlemen, familiar with the cultures and needs of various trading partners, bridged the gap between the foreign merchants arriving by sea and the inland communities supplying valuable resources. Together, Africans and foreign traders engaged in a continuous exchange dealing in an array of commodities that ranged from gold, ivory, and spices to textiles and crafted goods. Yet alongside the trade in material wealth, there was also the tragic and dark commerce of human beings, as these ports became nodes in the broader system of captivity and enslavement, weaving a sobering thread into the tapestry of their economic activities. This intricate web of commerce and captivity spun through the bustling harbors and winding streets of the Swahili coast, connected continents and peoples in ways that shaped the cultural and economic landscapes of the Indian Ocean world. These cities embodied the mingling of diverse influences and the dual realities of opportunity and exploitation, representing significant crossroads where the histories of Africa, Arabia, Persia, and beyond met, collided, and lasting ways. Null, roll, assistant. Null, roll, assistant. In the arid landscapes of Oman, countless enslaved Africans endured relentless labor on extensive date plantations that stretched far and wide across the region. Day after day, under the blazing, unforgiving sun, they worked tirelessly, compelled by forces beyond their control, with no legal recognition or personal freedom to protect their dignity or well-being. These individuals, stripped of their autonomy, poured their sweat and strength into the cultivation and harvesting of the dates, a fruit that would go on to generate significant wealth and prosperity for others. Despite their essential role in building this economic bounty, the personal histories and lived experiences of these enslaved workers have largely been overlooked or erased, their narratives lost to time, hidden beneath the very fruit they helped bring to life. Their stories remain shadowed, silent echoes beneath the lush date palms, waiting to be acknowledged and remembered. In the vast and intricate tapestry of Persian history, enslaved individuals played vital and multifaceted roles within households and agricultural estates, their lives woven quietly into the fabric of daily existence. These people, whose names and stories frequently escape the grand narratives recorded by historians, often exist in the shadows of history, only faintly remembered and rarely given the recognition they deserve. Despite this obscurity, their influence was undeniable and profound, as they became silent architects of cultural fusion, merging elements of African heritage and traditions with the customs and ways of Persian society. Bound by the harsh realities of slavery and the literal chains that enslaved them, these individuals nevertheless cultivated a unique and subtle blending of peoples and cultures, enriching the Persian world in ways that endure beyond the visible marks of their servitude. Throughout various regions of India, A number of Africans who had once endured the harsh realities of slavery managed to transcend their circumstances and ascend into positions of significant military authority and prestige. Notably among them were the Habshi generals, individuals who came to embody remarkable resilience and fortitude despite the traumatic constraints of captivity. These figures did not merely survive their ordeals, they rose to become powerful leaders, their lives serving as powerful symbols of endurance and the triumph of the human spirit in the face of oppression. The legacy of these African warriors and commanders continues to reverberate through the pages of history, their presence lingering like faint yet potent shadows in the intricate folds of the past. They stand as enduring echoes of strength, courage, and perseverance within the complex societies that were shaped in part by the movement and forced migration of peoples across continents. These echoes remind us of the indomitable will of those who, uprooted and displaced, contributed profoundly to the cultural and political fabric of their adopted lands, their stories woven into the rich tapestry of history. Slavery was the driving force behind the rapid growth and flourishing of many economies throughout history. It was a cruel and inhumane practice where human beings were treated merely as commodities, traded and exchanged in markets much like prized goods. These valuable items included exotic spices that tantalized the palates of distant lands, delicate and beautiful porcelain wares that adorned the tables and homes of the wealthy, intricately woven carpets that told stories through their patterns, and noble horses that were symbols of power and prestige. These highly sought-after commodities did not just satisfy local demands, they became the threads that wove together an extensive and complex global trading network. Through this interconnected web of commerce, vast empires were able to amass incredible wealth and power, their fortunes built upon the backs of enslaved individuals whose humanity was disregarded. This system grew ever more entrenched as the relentless pursuit of profit overshadowed any regard for human life or dignity, creating a legacy of exploitation and suffering that was deeply embedded in the economic and social fabric of the time. Along the sun-drenched shores, where the ocean waves met the land, coastal kingdoms that had become deeply entangled with the slave trade blossomed into centers of immense wealth and influence. These kingdoms, whose power grew hand in hand with the human misery they profited from, erected grand and imposing palaces that stood as stark monuments to their might, structures forged not only from stone and timber, but from a foundation steeped in the pain and exploitation of countless enslaved individuals. The lavishness of their courts, filled with splendor and extravagance, masked the brutal reality that their prosperity was built upon a grim trade in human lives. Within these thriving kingdoms, the figures who truly drove the economy, tax collectors, merchants, and traders, found their fortunes rising as rapidly as the tides. With each transaction, each tax levied, and each slave sold, their wealth accumulated, swelling their coffers and elevating their status. They operated as the vital cogs in a vast and shadowy network, connecting distant inland regions of Africa, where raids and captures fueled the relentless supply of enslaved people, to the coastal hubs where these individuals were sold onto ships destined for lands far beyond. This invisible web of chains that stretched ever deeper into Africa's heartlands was the unseen foundation beneath the first glimmerings of commercial prosperity on the coast, binding together a grim reality with the polished surface of wealth, power, and political dominance. Numerous small villages, once vibrant and full of life, were completely abandoned as a direct result of relentless, repeated raids. These once thriving communities turned into deserted ghost towns, their homes deserted and streets silent, where laughter and daily life once flourished. Families who had lived together for generations were brutally torn apart, separated by violence and displacement. The rich tapestry of cultural memories passed down through oral traditions and daily practices shattered and faded under the weight of destruction. The damage inflicted went well beyond individual suffering. It transformed entire regions, rewriting their histories in the ruthless pursuit of empire building. What was once a landscape marked by diverse traditions and communal life was reshaped into a bleak record of conquest and loss, a lasting testament to the costs of expansion and domination. Despite the relentless passage of years and the many attempts to forget or obscure the painful history, memory endured with quiet resilience. In the vast and vibrant landscapes of East Africa, the voices of ancestors continue to echo powerfully through songs and poetry, carrying forward the deep sorrow and enduring legacy of the Indian Ocean slave trade. These artistic expressions are far more than simple melodies or verses. They are living vessels of history, infused with rhythms and language that serve as a bridge between the past and the present. Through the careful weaving of words and beats, the spirits of those who suffered and were displaced find a way to communicate across the immense distances of time and generational divides. This steadfast cultural transmission stands as a profound act of defiance, refusing to succumb to the erasure that time's relentless march or silence's heavy veil try to impose. In this way, memory preserves not only the pain, but also the resilience and humanity of those whose stories might otherwise be lost. In the vast and arid expanse of the Sahel, where the horizon stretches endlessly beneath blazing sun and shifting dunes, the griots stand as living chronicles of the past. These storytellers, guardians of memory and culture, weave intricate tales that speak of both profound loss and unwavering resilience. Their voices rise and fall like the desert winds, threading seamlessly through the rich, complex fabric of history. These stories carry with them the spirit and endurance of countless individuals who, though they may have vanished into the unforgiving desert sands, refuse to be forgotten. Through the griot's artful narration and soulful songs, the lives, struggles, and triumphs of those who once walked these lands continue to live vividly in oral tradition, passing from one generation to the next, ensuring that their legacy remains unbroken despite the passage of time. Enslaved Africans were far more than mere laborers forced to toil under brutal conditions. They were skilled artisans who crafted objects of beauty and utility, fierce warriors who had once defended their homelands, nurturing mothers who cared for their children with unwavering love, devoted sons who held on to hope for their families, and, above all, complex human beings with rich, diverse stories that deserve to be heard and honored. Although their identities were violently shattered and fragmented by the cruel bonds of slavery, these individuals managed to piece themselves back together through immense spirit, extraordinary strength, and the persistent act of remembrance, preserving their heritage, culture, and memories in the face of dehumanization and erasure. Cultural traces persist and endure through time, weaving behind a rich tapestry that tells stories of complex histories and intertwined identities. One striking example can be found in Swahili architecture, which stands as a living testament to the remarkable blending of African and Persian influences. This architectural style is not merely a random combination, but a carefully woven fusion that speaks volumes about the interaction of diverse peoples and cultures. It holds within its walls and decorative elements the whispers of tales born not out of peaceful encounters alone, but from the messy, painful, and often forced mingling of communities. Despite the heavy shadows cast by the brutal realities of slavery and exploitation, a creativity that arises from this fusion is nothing short of extraordinary. It reveals a vibrant spirit of shared humanity, where cultures come together to create something new, beautiful, and resilient. A reminder that even in the darkest chapters of history, human ingenuity and connection find ways to shine through. Music became a powerful force that created and strengthened connections spanning vast continents. The vibrant, intricate beats originating in Africa intertwined seamlessly with the rich, complex rhythms of the Arabian world, crafting a unique, dynamic fusion. This blend was not just a casual mixing of sounds, but represented a profound expression of resistance and survival. A rhythmic heartbeat that resonated through countless generations. These beats carried the collective memory and spirit of people who faced adversity, hardship, and displacement, transforming their struggles into an enduring cultural legacy. Through these interwoven sounds, stories of endurance, hope, and identity were preserved and celebrated, becoming a living testament to a heritage that refuses to be forgotten, echoing loudly and clearly across time and space. Afro-Indian communities, especially in regions such as Gujarat, exemplify the remarkable ways in which the painful and complex legacies of enslavement have transformed over time into rich, vibrant cultures. These communities are living testaments to the enduring strength and resilience of their ancestors, who, despite being uprooted and subjected to unimaginable hardships, managed to forge new lives and identities. Their cultural expression today is not just a remnant of their African roots. It is a unique blend that weaves together the threads of their ancestral heritage with the influences and experiences of the Indian landscape and society they have been part of for generations. This transformation reflects a profound narrative of adaptation, resistance, and creativity. It is a story deeply embedded in the broader tapestry of history, a history that often includes some of its darkest and most brutal chapters, yet from which these communities have emerged as vibrant, dynamic, and proud custodians of a distinct cultural identity. The Afro-Indian experience in Gujarat and similar regions speaks to humanity's capacity to endure, reinvent, and celebrate identity in the face of adversity. The silence that surrounds these particular trades is far from accidental or coincidental. It has been carefully maintained, almost deliberately cultivated over the years, as if there were a collective effort to mute the stories and obscure the realities tied to them. Throughout history, the pages of recorded events have been meticulously whitewashed, often glossing over or completely erasing the brutal and inhumane aspects of these dealings. This deliberate omission has served to hide inconvenient truths that would otherwise unsettle and challenge the way we comprehend and interpret a deep, vast, and complex history of global slavery. The full narrative, rich with its tangled threads and dark spectacles, remains buried under layers of silence and selective memory, distorting our understanding and leaving the past shadowed by omission rather than illuminated by truth. Today, we take the bold step of opening up these long-forgotten, dusty volumes that have sat neglected on shelves for far too long. We do this in order to recover and restore the voices that have been silenced or overlooked throughout history. These voices do not come to us as mere fragments or isolated snippets. Rather, they emerge as complete, rich, and complex stories, These stories demonstrate clearly how slavery was not just a marginal aspect of the past, but actually served as a critical economic foundation upon which entire societies were built. It was an institution so deeply woven into the everyday fabric of life that, in many communities, it was regarded as a routine and accepted part of existence, just as ordinary and integral as agriculture or commerce. This normalization reveals the depth of its entrenchment, how slavery functioned as a standard pillar supporting the economic and social structures of those times. Trade during this period was driven and sustained by a web of intricate and multifaceted alliances that connected various groups and interests. The exchange was not merely economic, but deeply political and social, involving the careful negotiation of gifts, weapons, and various incentives that served as both tokens of alliance and tools of influence. Local rulers, far from being passive observers, actively engaged in these dealings, making strategic decisions to participate in this network of commerce. Their involvement was shaped by a blending of African and Arab interests, which became deeply intertwined over time. These alliances were underpinned by a shared hunger for wealth and a relentless pursuit of power. Together, these forces enforced a harsh, unforgiving system of trade that inflicted suffering and hardship, a brutal commerce that endured and shaped societies over many centuries. Null, roll, assistant, markets thrummed with the relentless activity of buying and selling human beings, a grim and heart-wrenching form of commerce. This was a brutal spectacle unfolding before countless eyes, one in which families were ripped apart without mercy or hesitation. Every transaction was a deeply personal disaster, a moment of profound loss and sorrow that rarely found a place in the pages of many history books. Yet, despite being overlooked or ignored by some records, these tragedies seared themselves indelibly into the memories of those who survived and those who were left behind. Their pain and grief echoing through time beyond the reach of ink and paper. Null, roll, assistant. Null, roll, assistant. A dark economy built upon the enslavement and trafficking of human beings. This system was driven by ruthless ambitions for profit and power, creating an exploitative network that spanned continents and seas. It wove together merchants, traders, and local powers who benefited from the inhumane trade, shaping the historical and social fabric of the regions it touched in profound and often devastating ways. In essence, the Indian Ocean slave route was more than just a passage for goods. It was a sprawling, complex web of human bondage and economic interests, linking diverse lands and cultures in a shared history marked by suffering, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of wealth and dominance. During the times when African women found themselves in India, many often assumed roles such as wet nurses or domestic workers. These women, though integral to the functioning of households, were frequently invisible in the broader social narrative. They provided care and labor silently, their identities blending into the fabric of the foreign homes where they lived and worked. While their personal histories and cultural backgrounds were frequently overlooked or forgotten, the contributions they made remained significant and lasting, leaving an enduring legacy behind, even if their individual stories were rarely acknowledged or recorded. Men had the potential to rise through the ranks and achieve significant military prominence, even reaching positions such as generals within the specialized structures of sultanates. These extraordinary journeys, where individuals who might have once been bound in chains or enslaved could ascend to high command, reveal a profound and intricate narrative about human resilience. It is a story rich with the perseverance of dignity, shining through despite the surrounding circumstances of hardship and degradation. Such transformations highlight not just personal courage, but also the nuanced social and political dynamics at play within those historical contexts. Through these remarkable experiences, the tension between suffering and honor is vividly illustrated, offering a layered understanding of the ways individuals navigated and transcended their original status to wield power and influence. This complex human saga underscores the contradictory nature of existence in such systems, where the same environment that inflicted subjugation could also elevate a man to leadership and respect. Throughout history, slaves were often traded hand in hand with rare and exotic goods from far-off lands, forming a grim but lucrative exchange network. This dark and morally fraught commerce generated massive wealth that fueled the rise and expansion of powerful empires, weaving a complex web of economic and cultural connections among continents. Cities flourished and grew prosperous from the influx of these riches, their prosperity built on the back of this ruthless trade. However, this economic prosperity and imperial grandeur were paid for with an unfathomable human price: the brutal suffering, exploitation, and loss of countless lives whose stories are often overshadowed by the glimmer of the treasures they were traded for. The rich and lustrous treasures of African ivory and gleaming gold poured into the global markets, profoundly enriching them with their unparalleled value and allure. This influx did more than merely fill coffers. It ignited an insatiable hunger for these precious commodities that spread far and wide, linking traders and rulers from distant lands in complex networks of commerce and power. Yet beneath the shimmering surface of wealth and prosperity, these exchanges were steeped in suffering and injustice. The insidious demand for ivory and gold created and perpetuated merciless cycles of exploitation, binding those who profited and those who ordered the trades ever closer into a relentless loop of cruelty. The hands through which this wealth flowed, whether merchants counting their coins or monarchs plotting their next conquests, were inevitably stained with the profound and enduring pain inflicted upon countless enslaved individuals. Their anguish and bondage were the dark, hidden cost embedded in every ounce of ivory and every glint of gold, a human toll that cast a long and grim shadow over the supposedly prosperous exchange of these riches. In this way, African ivory and gold did not just enrich global markets, they entwined the destinies of many in a harrowing dance of greed, power, and suffering that echoed through history. Cities such as Kilwa and Cairo emerged as formidable centers of power and prosperity, growing rich and influential through their strategic locations and thriving economies. Their splendor and magnificence dazzled visitors and residents alike, showcasing impressive architecture, bustling marketplaces, and vibrant cultural life. Yet, beneath this dazzling exterior lay a darker reality, one that these great cities preferred to keep hidden from view. The wealth and success they enjoyed came at a tremendous human cost, paid for in the silent suffering of countless enslaved individuals whose lives were marked by hardship and cruelty. This system of slavery was an enduring shadow that stretched far beyond the visible stones of grand buildings and ornate palaces. For generations, the prosperity of these cities was inextricably linked to human bondage, a painful legacy woven into their very foundations, remembering us that beneath their outward splendor lay a profound and often overlooked tragedy. In bustling port cities such as Muscat, the relentless labor of enslaved workers formed the very backbone of countless workshops and sprawling plantations. These individuals, stripped of freedom yet imbued with indispensable strength and skill, were central to the engines driving local economies forward. Their daily toil underpinned the prosperity and survival of these urban hubs, making them indispensable cogs within an intricate commercial machine. However, despite their critical role, their personal stories, struggles, and identities were ruthlessly overshadowed. Their humanity deliberately obscured and minimized by the deliberate omissions and deafening silences embedded deep within the historical records and narratives that have been passed down through generations. This systematic erasure rendered them invisible in the grand sweep of history, reducing vibrant lives and complex experiences to mere footnotes or total absences, effectively denying them recognition as full human beings who shaped their world. The impact on humanity was truly staggering and heart-wrenching. Whole families were torn apart, their bonds shattered as loved ones were taken away and forcibly separated. Innocent children were uprooted from the familiarity and safety of their home countries and thrust into foreign lands where everything was strange and unwelcoming. The homes that once echoed with laughter, memories, and traditions were left abandoned and empty, the walls silently bearing witness to the absence of those who had been taken. Every single person captured held within them a unique and unfinished story, a narrative abruptly interrupted, their futures stolen away without consent or hope. These lives, rich with potential and dreams, were seized not for their own sake but to serve distant ambitions and causes, their humanity reduced to mere fuel for goals and power far removed from their own worlds and desires. Oral traditions played a vital role in preserving these precious memories across time. Through heartfelt songs of sorrow that carried the weight of grief and loss, through gripping stories of endurance that showcased the strength and resilience of those who lived through hardship, and through faint but persistent glimmers of hope that offered promise for a better future. These treasured narratives were lovingly passed down from one generation to the next, each recital performed beneath the vast open sky where ancestors once gathered. With every telling, these stories defied being forgotten or erased, ensuring that the spirit of the past remained vividly alive in the hearts and minds of successive generations. Today, the descendants recognize and celebrate a profound resilience that has been passed down through countless generations. This resilience is preserved not only in written form, but more importantly, in the living, breathing archives that embody a shared cultural heritage, a heritage forged through immense pain and struggle. These archives are far more than mere documents or historical records. They are vibrant, dynamic expressions of identity that blend the diverse traditions and histories of multiple continents. They serve as powerful testaments to survival, endurance, and the unbreakable human spirit. These stories and legacies are not written on pages or confined to libraries. Instead, they live deeply within the hearts of the people and are carried forward through meaningful rituals, ceremonies, and everyday practices that keep the memory and spirit of their ancestors alive and thriving. Education plays a fundamental role in shaping how we remember and understand the past. When history classes include the stories and contributions of these trades, it actively works to bring back voices that have long been overlooked, ignored, or forgotten. This process is not just about adding more information. It's about reclaiming and honoring those who have been erased from mainstream narratives. By doing so, we create a richer, more truthful account of history, one that allows future generations to grasp the complex realities where suffering and resilience exist side by side. This fuller perspective ensures that the lessons learned carry greater meaning and that the strength demonstrated by those in these trades is never lost or diminished. It transforms education into a tool for justice, remembrance, and a deepened understanding of human experience across time. By uncovering and bringing attention to this long-forgotten and often overlooked chapter of our collective history, we ignite a powerful sense of awareness, foster deeper empathy, and open pathways toward meaningful healing. By choosing to remember and acknowledge these untold stories, we take a crucial step on the journey toward achieving justice. This act of remembrance is not just an individual endeavor, but a collective responsibility that we all share. A commitment to honoring and restoring the dignity of those whose voices were suppressed and erased by the forces of history. In doing so, we challenge the silence that once sought to erase their existence and affirm their rightful place in our shared narrative, allowing truth and recognition to foster reconciliation and hope. The narratives surrounding the Trans-Saharan and Indian Ocean slave trades hold a profound significance for us all, demanding our respect and acknowledgement as integral parts of our collective history. These stories, while deeply painful and filled with the heavy weight of suffering and injustice, serve as crucial reminders that the full truth of history cannot be ignored or glossed over if we seek to understand our past in its entirety. They compel us to face uncomfortable realities and ensure that these chapters, often overshadowed or omitted, are finally brought to light. By confronting these difficult legacies head-on, we not only honor those who endured unimaginable hardship, but also recognize the enduring strength and resilience that has persisted across generations despite such adversity. In doing so, we reclaim the voices that history tried to silence, restoring visibility to experiences too long forgotten, and we celebrate the unbroken spirit that continues to inspire us today as we move forward together.